Hello and welcome to the second in my series of YouTube videos in which I explore the biographies and backstories of the characters from the Pailtoy range of Action Force toys released in 1983 and 1984. In my first video I went into some detail as to who Pailtoy were and how Action Force came about. So if you haven't done so already, please check that out. In that video I also gave some insight into the backstory of the Q-Force Aqua Trooper codenamed Shark. In this video I'm going to switch to a different Action Force team and look at the Z-Force Jeep driver codenamed Wheels. The Wheels figure was only available with the amazing Z-Force Jeep, which was one of my favourite toys as a child. The figure was a replica of the Z-Force Infantryman, the only difference being that the Wheels figure had red pouches at the side, whilst the Infantryman figure had black ones. Wheels' Battle Action Force data file states his real name is Fritz van Eyck, and his birthplace is Eindhoven, Holland. His Action Force number is 396900 and his primary military speciality is transportation. His second military speciality is infantry. His history states, Wheels was a mechanic for an international transport company. Joined Action Force to work on the best engines there are. Completed basic infantry training with distinction in advanced convoy driving. Qualified expert with M14, M16 rifle. His tagline reads, "We'll drive anything. When the going gets tough, Wheels gets tougher." We first see Wheels on the cover of the Action Force mini-comic story Desert Victory. In the story, Z-Force are undertaking desert training in the Sahara. Wheels is driving a Jeep with the Z-Force captain codenamed Skip in the passenger seat. Other parts of the Z-Force convoy are ambushed by red shadows as Wheels and Skip approach an Arab caravan. The Arabs turn out to be shadows in disguise, and they open fire on the Z-Force men. Thanks to Wheels' skillful driving, the two of them manage to escape from the gunfire. However, they are soon pursued by Red Shadow's shadow track vehicles, and are surrounded on all sides. Skip orders Wheels to head for an area of the desert covered by quicksand, and after a desperate drive they reach the deadly location. Wheels slams on the brakes, and they come to a halt just in time as the shadow tracks career into the swamp. They then reach a nearby town and enter a bar where they have arranged to meet a contact, only to find shadows have infiltrated here too. Wheels and Skip are saved by an undercover Z-Force operative codenamed Quarrel, and the three of them contemplate what Baron Ironblood's next move will be. Wheels' first appearance in Battle Action Force is in the epic Z-Force story entitled Desert Strike. In this adventure we find Z-Force in the desert again, training the soldiers of a friendly Central African state called Juna. As the training concludes, the Z-Force soldiers are attacked by terrorists of the evil Ghibli movement. Wheels plays a key part in the tactical retreat into the relative safety of the desert, with Juna's President Akab. Over the following days and weeks, the surviving Z-Force troops commence a guerrilla counter-offensive against the Ghibli. They skillfully pick off Ghibli patrols, who have been sent out to hunt down any survivors of the terrorist group's invasion of the country. Wheels' superior driving in the sleek Z-Force Jeep enables his colleagues to pick off the Ghibli troops aboard clunkier trucks. Z-Force further strike back at a Ghibli garrison, again utilising Wheels and his Jeep. He daringly uses desert whirlwinds as cover to stealthily approach the base as his colleagues open up on the Ghibli troops stationed there. Wheels then reverses into a watchtower, causing the gunman stationed in it to fall to his doom. After the counterattacks, the hot desert weather and isolation begins to have an effect on the Z-Force soldiers, and Wheels is no exception, as he falls out with the battle tank driver codenamed Steeler, over which of their vehicles is more effective in the conditions. Whilst Wheels and Skip are out on patrol, the disgruntled Steeler is persuaded by President Akab to use his tank to attack a Ghibli prison where Juna loyalist soldiers are being held. This prompts the deranged Major Maddie to launch his Ghibli fighter plane to attack Z-Force. But Skip and Wheels hear of Steeler's actions by radio and surmise that the Ghibli will launch their air force to counterattack, so the Z-Force men decide to raid the airfield where the jets are kept. Just as Maddie is about to take off, Wheels' Jeep roars onto the runway. Maddie fires the jet's missiles at the Jeep, but Wheels swerves them using all his driving skill. Maddie ejects from the jet and is presumed dead as the Z-Force soldiers raid supplies from the airfield before escaping back into the desert. Maddie survives though and is sent to a Swiss hospital to recuperate, and whilst there he sources a Harrier jump jet from an arms dealer to aid the Ghibli cause. Meanwhile, Z-Force start training the rescued Juna loyalist soldiers as part of the preparations to finally liberate the country. These preparations also involve further covert scavenging missions from Ghibli bases to obtain military equipment, and Wheels plays an important part in this. Whilst on one such preparation mission, 2 Z-Force soldiers are discovered and become surrounded by Ghibli troops. Wheels responds to their mayday calls and bravely comes to their rescue. Once the preparations are complete, Z-Force begin the counter-offensive. As part of this, Wheels is tasked with a reconnaissance mission. Unbeknown to him and the rest of Z-Force though, the healed Maddie is heading back to Juna aboard a Harrier which he has learned to fly, and he has Wheels in his sights. As part of his reconnaissance, Wheels disguises himself as a resident of Juna and discovers Maddie's plans. His cover is blown though, and Wheels is forced to flee from an angry mob. He manages to get back to his jeep, but is now pursued by Maddie and the Harrier. Even Wheels' skillful driving cannot save him against such overwhelming odds, and a missile from the jet blows up the jeep with Wheels in it, and he is presumed dead. Maddie and the Harrier appear to be turning the course of the battle in the Ghibli's favour, as Z-Force's resistance appears to be coming to an end. To further rub salt into the wound, they discover Wheels is still alive and has been captured and strapped to the front of a vehicle. The surviving Z-Force soldiers retreat to an oasis and are surrounded by Ghibli forces. Wheels is cut from the vehicle he was tied to join his seemingly doomed comrades. However, in a final twist of fate, the Z-Force battle tank emerges from the waters of the oasis and blows the Harrier out of the sky. Eventually, Maddie and all remnants of the Ghibli are obliterated, as Z-Force win back peace for Juna and Wheels fully recovers from his injuries. We next see Wheels in another Z-Force story called Tank Hunt. Whilst on training manoeuvres in Norway, Red Shadows managed to capture an experimental Z-Force battle tank. Wheels has a supportive part in the eventual successful recapture of the tank, but he only appears occasionally in this story, in which other Z-Force characters play more important roles in the mission. He next appears in a story entitled Operation Spearhead, in which all 4 Action Force teams lead a counter-insurgency into a Far Eastern country which Baron Ironblood has invaded. Again though, Wheels is only in the story briefly and plays a minor part. The next big Z-Force adventure is called Jungle Terror. The team are deployed to the capital of the African country of Natanga, which is under the grip of a terrorist group called the Mamba Men, who are under the orders of Baron Ironblood. Soon after their arrival, the Mamba Men and their pet poisonous snakes start to pick off Z-Force soldiers, and Wheels is part of the team who investigate, but initially fail to counter their mysterious adversaries. The Mamba Men appear to have the early upper hand, and Skip decides to help the local population evacuate the capital in convoy, and Wheels plays a part in this. The mission is not entirely successful though, and the convoy is ambushed. Skip is lost in the fighting, and is in fact captured by the Mamba Men, as Wheels contemplates his leader's possible fate. Skip manages to escape though, but Z-Force are forced to retreat deep into the capital as the Mamba Men tighten their grip. Wheels is involved in this action and comes to the rescue of an Action Force colleague codenamed Jammer and the Natangan president. He is then involved in a last stand against the Mamba Men, and he and Jammer ingeniously electrocute the Mamba's snakes using the battery of a Z-Force jeep. The tide is turned against the terrorists, who are finally defeated. As Z-Force leave Natanga by plane, some of the troops start to panic when they hear a hissing noise they think could be snakes. But they all fall about laughing when they realise it's just a puncture on Wheels' jeep. We see him next in a story called Death Castle, in which Baron Ironblood establishes a European base deep in the Austrian Alps. Coincidentally, SAS Force are training in the area and they stumble upon the location. They call in Z-Force to assist, and Wheels is part of the team. Wheels has only a nominal part in the adventure though, as the two teams are ultimately successful. However, Ironblood, as usual, manages to escape. Wheels and his Action Force colleagues contemplate what the evil genius's next move will be. The next big Z-Force story is called Assault on Atoll Z, in which the team are deployed to protect a small Pacific island state from red shadows. Wheels isn't actually named in this story, but does appear briefly driving the Z-Force Jeep to intercept a team of shadow suicide bombers, and that's his only involvement. We then see him very briefly aboard a Z-Force Jeep in the Space Force story entitled Codename Moondancer, but he doesn't participate much more than that. We get another glimpse of Wheels and the Z-Force Jeep in the epic story World Enemy No. 1, in which Baron Ironblood forms a Cobra terrorist organisation and transforms himself into Cobra Commander. This change was a big shake-up to the overall storyline, and the 4 Action Force teams in the Red Shadows were removed from toy shop shelves to be replaced by figures based on the Hasbro G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero line. IPC Magazines, who produced Battle Action Force comic, remained loyal to the original characters though by bringing them back periodically for battles against Cobra or the now disjointed Red Shadows. Z-Force featured heavily in one such story entitled Venom of Cobra. In the story, Wheels and the team are dispatched to India, where Cobra have recently attacked a local Air Force base using a robo-skull craft piloted by Red Wolf. Whilst en route in their plane transport though, Skip reveals that they have been infiltrated and that at least one of the team is a traitorous spy. They land and meet with local Indian soldiers, and Wheels expresses his disgust at having to nursemaid the local troops. The Indian Major insinuates that Wheels is a big mouth, but Wheels doesn't seem to understand the insult. Wheels drives a jeep deep into the area where Cobra are believed to be hidden, but he and the rest of Z-Force soon find themselves under attack from Red Wolf. Z-Force escape, but the Indian forces are all killed and their vehicles also destroyed. Wheels is tasked with trying to get them started again. Using all his mechanic training, he manages to fix up one of the jeeps. He and Skip and 2 other Z-Force soldiers use the jeep to try and locate Red Wolf. They stumble upon a peasant village, but find it has been infiltrated by Cobra troopers led by the evil Destro. Wheels attempts to drive them out of trouble, but a bullet punctures one of the jeep's tyres. He jams down the jeep's accelerator though, and points it towards a Cobra barricade before he and his colleagues bail out. A number of Cobra troopers are killed, but Destro soon leads another group against the Z-Force men. Wheels comes face to face against Destro and manages to dodge a bullet fired by the Cobra second in command. Wheels has a brief chance to take Destro out, but misses the opportunity. He and Skip try to hunt down the Cobra man, but Destro manages to make his escape. Wheels and Skip return to where the rest of the Z-Force soldiers are hiding out, and they find them just in time to save them from a Cobra attack. Wheels manages to capture a Cobra helicopter, and they order the pilot to take them to where Cobra Commander is based. Wheels holds the pilot at gunpoint and extracts vital information from him, and discovers that Cobra have taken over an Indian city. As the helicopter approaches Cobra Commander's base, the soldier who has been identified as the traitor kills the pilot before Wheels knocks the spy out using the butt of his pistol. The helicopter veers into the base as Skip attempts to land it. Once on the ground, he and Wheels and the other Z-Force men attempt to capture Cobra Commander. He escapes though, but with the help of Indian locals, Z-Force liberate the city and the traitor is killed in the fighting. Wheels' final appearance is in the last ever Battle Action Force story called Operation Deep Cover Battleground. After this, Marvel took over the license to produce Action Force comics, and all mention of Z-Force and the other 3 original teams came to an end. Wheels' appearance is very brief. In the story, he drives United Nations observers to join the new Action Force, who are on a training exercise. One of the observers suggests it was a hair-raising journey, and that Wheels doesn't seem to know how to use the brake. This short appearance, I think, was a final homage in the comic to the original Action Force before they were replaced by the Hasbro base figures, and was a nice touch by IPC in the final episode to acknowledge where the story all began. Wheels is a great character, who is a key man in the Z-Force lineup. He appears in the majority of their stories, often playing an important part. As time went on though, he featured less and less, probably to give space in the stories to other Z-Force personnel. They were the biggest of the 4 Action Force teams and arguably the most popular, so fitting all the characters in the stories would have been difficult. Wheels is always there or thereabouts the action though, and was a dependable member of the team, and his driving skills often got them out of many a predicament. That's the end of my second Action Force biography. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button. And feel free to put comments below. I'd really like to know what you think, and I'd love to make more of these with your support. Goodbye for now, and thanks for watching.